I'm 95% certain that's copyright infringement. I got it off.
Change the pitch of it.
I got it. Well, the internet site I got it off of said it was like a free beat, like they put it together, but it's it's note for note a copy
Dead
of
on.
it. But
Yeah.
but welcome to Friends, Talking Friends. Obviously, we are friends, talking about friends, and that's the idea behind it. I'm Jay. We got Calvin with us. Just a little bit of our background with this. You know, we've kind of looked into this idea of a podcast with friends, and there's some stuff out there, but, you know, not necessarily what we think we can bring to the table. And this is going to be, we're going to talk about the episodes, and we're going to talk about the story development through it, and we're going to talk about, you know, the XYZs of the characters and what we see, but it is not a deep dive, as we are not professionals. We're not critics. This is just like a fan-driven show, and we're just kind of like doing this for fun and having a good time with it. And we hope that people watch this and enjoy it with us. So I'll start with me. I've, you know, just to get an idea of how many times I've seen Friends, I've probably watched it through, I'm going to say I'm nearing probably 10 times. I've probably watched it 10 times. And I always watch the first episode with the last episode because that last episode gets you sad. So as soon as you finish it, you have to start the next episode. That is a rule. So how many times, Cal, would you say that you've watched it?
I think I'm probably close to 20. I know in college, I have the box sets, and in college that was just what was always on, doing homework, whatever, doing studying, anything like that. It was always what was on, either in the background or actively watching it. And then for your same thing with the last episode, I've only seen the last episode once. Because I skip it every time. I get to the last episode, I go right to the first.
So, like, you know, we get to the 10th season, I'm really going to have to start driving it home because you're going to be just clueless. And then, obviously, with this, as people start following us and paying attention to the episodes, there's going to be 1,000 spoilers on this. So if you haven't seen it, watch the episodes and then watch us. And it's funny because I'm like, you know, Friends is the last episode was 20 years ago probably, so you're like, you know, everybody has seen it at this point. And but like you'll see on TikTok like couples that are watching Friends for the first time, and then like big moments like when Ross says Rachel's name instead of Emily's, and like a legit reaction of people that have never seen that. So like it would be interesting to go back and watch this whole thing, because I think when I first started watching, my sisters were watching, and I kind of just like saw an episode because I sat down and watched it, and then I wouldn't see 3 or 4 episodes. So I don't think I really got into it until probably after college. I've binge watched a lot of Friends in the last 10, 15 years. So it'll be interesting to see our different perspective, because I think I've watched a lot more recently than you, but you've watched a lot more overall. So it'll be interesting to see how much, you know, because again, you're saying background noise, so maybe there's some things that you don't remember or never have, you know, consciously paid attention to. So
yeah, and it's funny, the same way you got started was the same way I got started. It was when your sisters were watching it and I was at your house. And that's
really?
when because like the first episode I had ever seen was something like it was in like season 7, somewhere in there. And then watched a few, and then liked it. So that's when we would buy the DVDs. And younger audience might not know what those are anymore. But.
So yeah, that's so true. So your mom is a Friends fan as well, correct? Mm-hmm. So did you get her on it, or was she already like watching, and then you kind of just found that common ground?
Yeah, I think it was more like that, because I think she watched a couple times with your sisters too. And it would either at our house or whatnot.
My sisters may have started the whole franchise.
Yeah, I think
what
they
would
did.
Friends be without my sisters?
They need to get to grab some credit from that.
They got everybody on it, at least in the 45121 zip code. But yeah, so we'll talk about the episodes as we go. Obviously, the idea behind this is mainly to have fun with it. We hope you guys have fun with it as well. But we are going to start every episode off with starting what the title is, and then we're going to hit Calvin with some trivia questions, and I'm going to keep track is what I'm going to do. I've just now decided that in my mind, like, when we get back and keep track of everything. So, Season 1, Episode 1, the one where Monica gets a roommate. That is the official name of it. I think there's like the one that starts it all is like another name for it, but the one where Monica gets a roommate is the actual title for it. So, you ready for your trivia?
I'm ready.
Okay, so this is something I always wondered, and I didn't know it again until I just now watched it the other day. So, who said the very first line, and what was that line?
Oh. It's Chandler telling his dream, isn't it?
That's what I thought too, but that's the second clip in that. There's one before.
It's got to be Monica, right?
Correct. It is Monica. It's about her dating life.
She says it's not a date.
You're really close. There's nothing to tell. It's just some guy I work with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they're talking about Paul, the wine guy,
Paul,
obviously, who
right.
we meet a little bit later. Okay, so then a little bit later, Rachel comes in. And we'll get into all that. This is just trivia. But a little bit later, Rachel comes in, and Monica's introducing him to everybody, or her to everybody, and she says where Ross herself, and Rachel went to high school. What was the name of that high school?
Lincoln High.
Very good. Another Lincoln High survivor. I wouldn't have got that. See, I guess that's another thing. Like during COVID, we did that trivia. And like UK and Allie were just like tearing it up, and I was just like, every once in a while I'd pull something like crazy out that like was just a minute detail, but I was definitely the weakest link in that trivia. And then that one week where Allie was out, because it was like 5 weeks.
Yeah, that was fun too.
That was a good time. We should bring that back.
Resurrect that.
I know. All right, so you're 1.5 for 2. I'll get 1.5 for 2. Later in the episode, Rachel makes her first pot of coffee and gives it to Chandler and Joey, and they're in Monica's apartment. And she talks about how it's her first. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yep.
What's the answer then?
Western omelet. Is that right?
What did Joey want Rachel to make? That was amazing. See, I think you got 1.5 for that because you finished the question.
Perfect. I'm back to it.
3 for 3.
Because then they like spit it back out and they go, actually, you know what? I'm not that hungry.
Yeah, and they dump it in the like plant in the middle of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Western omelet or something. Man, I can't believe you got that before I even finished. That was amazing. So the episode starts. We'll get into it. Episode starts in the coffee house of, obviously that's where it's going to begin. And did I show you that Meg got me a, we're like, because I'm weird. Yeah, the little couch for the Christmas village. Mm-hmm. God, I think I should have that. That's what I should have.
You should. You should definitely have that in the background.
That was a rookie mistake. Next time. Next episode. So, episode starts. No Ross, no Rachel. Did you have I think of all the transformations. First off, the acting in episode 1, season 1 is not great. I mean, but, obviously you're comparing it to 10 years. So, everybody's going to get better at their job in 10 years, you would hope. But, I felt like... and we'll kind of get into some of it, but a lot of that stuff was it felt like it was forced, comedy.
Yeah. It's definitely felt more scripted. The whole show is obviously scripted, but once you get into it and they develop, you kind of forget that it's scripted. It feels more natural of just the dynamic of the group. But in the first episode, it definitely feels like they are reading in their heads.
I think the ones that kind of stick out is when Rachel walks in and she wants a coffee and Monica's like decaf, and it's so I don't want to say cringy because that's not the right word, but it's so fake how she says it. I'm like, that's like, and then how, and I don't know why I didn't realize this, but like how sarcastic Chandler is in the beginning. Like he doesn't have a line in the first 2 episodes where it's just a genuine line. It's a sarcastic remark every single time, and I didn't realize it was that much. But it's funny how they grow. But my point of that was the style of somebody who changed the most. I thought was Joey, because his hair and that leather jacket in that first
scene, that's sleeveless. Like it's like, whoa, where are we?
I was like Phoebe still wears her same stuff. Like the whole 10th season it's Phoebe stuff, and Ross has always got his and Chandler's got the sweater vest. But Joey's transformation is insane. But I think he definitely went through the biggest style change. But montage of conversation, and then Ross walks in. Do you remember Ross's first line? Yeah, which he had that line like 3 or 4 times, and then they like completely went away from it for whatever reason. But we find out he did have that depressing high is because Carol left him, or Carol moved out all the stuff. I guess she moved out all the stuff, and then Phoebe tries to clear Ross's aura, and which is a very Phoebe thing. So it's funny how you see, like, even after watching it so many times, how many of those root characteristics are there, even though they do change and they get better at their job as actors. But some of those root characteristics they have are definitely there, and I think Phoebe probably has it the most out of all of them.
Yeah, it's very clear from like the beginning to especially midway. I think her development, in my opinion, it gets a little bit faster or different towards the latter episodes. But her cleansing of aura, her hippy dippy, that stuff is very ingrained.
Yeah, it is, but again, that's what makes Phoebe Phoebe, and I think she's a very likable character. So, and then Joey later makes a comment about with Ross. I was reading my notes. I'm like, what am I talking about? But makes a comment with Ross about like, and you didn't know she was a lesbian, which is really funny.
How should I?
Because if you could like put yourself, we're both married, like put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
Like, what would your excuse be?
I have no idea. Like, I mean, his answer is perfectly right on. She didn't know, correct. So how should I? Like, it's if that the person that is a lesbian doesn't know, then
how are you?
Wouldn't expect an outsider to know.
No, he doesn't. He does make a comment. And again, watching this show, especially those early episodes, how like, I guess how politically incorrect some of those things would be today, like they wouldn't get away with.
I mean, it was also groundbreaking at the time. Like sure. you think you have same-sex marriages, you have interracial, like all of that. Like I'm not saying it was perfect, but it was also, we're talking about the early '90s,
right?
This is 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's just jokes that wouldn't fly today. Not necessarily that they're over the top offensive, but they definitely wouldn't be tried in today's world. But like part of what I'm thinking on that is like when later in this episode, I think it's this episode, might be his next episode, where they're building furniture, and he talks about Carol drinking a beer, and he's like, "I should have known." Which is so
right out of the can.
It doesn't mean anything, but it's really funny that is said. But then, Ross obviously talks about why is everybody so fixated on that. Like, if she didn't know, like you were saying, if she didn't know, how am I supposed to know? So, but then they, everybody's trying to Joey gives his Joey advice on how Ross should get over it, and Monica says this, and blah, blah, blah. And then Ross is like, I don't want advice. I just want to be married, which Rachel walks in her full wedding gown at that point. And then Chandler, again, sarcastic remark, says,
I just won $1 million.
Yeah, he just, and again, that's all Chandler says is just sarcasm. So, and then Monica introduces Rachel to everybody, which as we go through the show, I do think that we should point out like continuity errors as they happen, because like characters that are used more than once, like but in this, Rachel is introduced to everybody, and she acts like her and Chandler don't really know each other. But then, as the more you get into their background story, they definitely should know each other.
Yeah,
because night Ross is mad at. No, the night Chandler is mad at Ross, which is in college, but it's like a flashback a few seasons up. He actually talks about kissing Rachel, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, that was so that, and then there was another one that was. Oh no, I guess that was the one that almost was, or the one that would have been, or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of the episode. That was when the coffee house was a pool hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like she actually has like a daydream about him as she's driving. But then even like the Thanksgivings, he's at like 3 or 4 Thanksgivings.
Yeah, he's at all of them. Yeah. But so actually that wasn't a one that would have been. That was real.
Yeah, correct.
The coffee house used to be a pool hall.
Correct. She just didn't actually go through with what she was daydreaming.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's one of the first continuity errors. There's several going on with it. But again, you're writing a show for 10 years. Like there would be if I was writing, it'd be continuity errors all over the place. So I'm not. Yeah. I just think it's funny to point those out.
They didn't know season 4 when they were writing season 1 or episode 1 of season 1,
or if it was getting to season 4 kind of thing. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, she definitely should know Chandler, and then she talks about how she left Barry and why she showed up to the coffee house was because she was like looking for Monica. Like she's the only person she knew in the city. Which Monica replies, the only one that wasn't invited to the wedding, which is so bizarre because a couple reasons. One, she was your best friend growing up, right? She would have been at the wedding. Like, it would have made more sense. Unless they just had a huge falling out, which they obviously did not in anything in the show. So, obviously...
And how old are they? In season 1, I mean, they're 25, 20...
I don't know, because when is Rachel dating Tag? What season-ish would that be? That would be like 7 or 8, right? And that's when they're all turning 30. So they could even be early 20s when this is starting off.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think
know
so. For sure.
What stands out in my head is when Joey's trying to play 19. He was like, Chandler's like, no, you can play your own age of 31.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm 30.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's just, I mean, it's... Yeah, so it makes no sense that she wouldn't be at the wedding, especially since it's like in town. Like it's close enough for her to run away from her wedding and get there.
Exactly.
Maybe she took a taxi.
Still in a wedding dress. Yeah.
Right. I don't think she did. So it doesn't make sense for that that she wouldn't have been invited. And if she wasn't invited, right? So like think about it as Rachel really didn't invite her. You run out on your wedding. Why would the first person you think about running to be somebody you didn't invite to your wedding?
Well, that's not necessarily discontinuity because anybody that you would think to run to is at the wedding.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me why she would run there. But obviously, they just wanted her to run through the door. But
right.
Yeah, it's funny. So, episode shifts to Monica's apartment then. And when you were watching this, or when have you ever watched this, and I have watched on either Netflix or Max for the past 10 years. So, this was the first time I watched on Amazon, which I think is like the DVDs. I'm pretty sure there's like a legit fire alarm going off somewhere in like studios next to where they're filming. If you ever go back and watch just like the first 5 seconds, there's a very audible fire alarm going off, and I
in the first 5 seconds in their apartment.
Yeah, like when they're first starting, and obviously it's not them. Like it's not meant to be part of the show because they're not running away from anything. So but I thought I heard that, but maybe I'm just crazy too. But so anyway, it's 5 of them watching TV. Rachel's on the phone with her dad, and then she lets the iconic line of her whole life, everybody's just saying, your shoe, your shoe, your shoe, your shoe. What if I want to be a hat or a purse? Which it kind of shows a little bit of background to Rachel that like she obviously, and she admits later that she was only going to marry Barry because he had money, right? Like she wasn't really in love with him, he had money. Mm-hmm. So it kind of like portrays that like, as long as you do what you're told, we'll take care of all your bills and whatnot.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think she was like, to me that showed a little bit more of a maturity side than what I think her character was supposed to at the time. Mm-hmm. And part of that's because the metaphor makes sense, and even like Ross is like, well, you can see where he might have gotten lost there, and I immediately listened to that and I was like, that makes sense. I don't see where he got lost.
It's a poor metaphor, but it makes sense.
But it makes sense, yeah. It's a very materialistic metaphor, but it made sense at the time. So, but yeah, I think that spoke into, I guess maybe even foreshadowing into her growth in that aspect, that she is using metaphor correctly.
Yeah, something I got right here is, I think of all the Friends characters, the character Rachel had to been the hardest to cast, because even throughout like all, like, when she has a crush on Joey, right, and what's her name, Charlie hears her and Phoebe talking, and then Charlie thinks it's Phoebe, and Rachel has an opportunity to say, no, that was me, but she just completely throws Phoebe under the bus. But she does a lot of that stuff throughout the series. So Rachel as an actual character can be very unlikable, very unlikable. So
and
I think
for them to make her likable.
Yes, like getting Jennifer Aniston, like, and hats off to her of how well she did that, because like they obviously didn't want 5 characters liked and then 1 disliked, and everybody's got their preference. I get that, but like to be able to make a very unlikable person likable is like crazy to me. That they were able to do that. Yeah. So, but and again, that it shows Rachel being, and I guess like in my mind, and again, if you think about, it doesn't really show Rachel's background story, because again, it can't right now because it's just too early, and you would dislike her immediately. But later on, her background story is kind of shown based on Christina Applegate's character. Like, that's who Rachel would have been. Like, her sister, Christina Applegate. Not Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
Which, can you imagine if those 3 were really sisters? Like, what a power Hollywood family that would be.
Yeah, but seriously.
Like, Christina Applegate is, like, a very unlikable character and that's had to have been, to some extent, Rachel's background.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's, they're... The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, basically. Like, all 3 sisters have that same very materialistic, very money-driven, very wealthy to begin with. I mean,
right.
Their dad's a successful doctor.
Yeah. Like, which is Christina Applegate named Jill, or is Reese Witherspoon Jill? Reese Witherspoon's Jill. I can't
Reese Witherspoon's Jill. I can't either. That's what I'm trying to...
I cannot remember her name. And she's in it a couple times. Reese Witherspoon's only in it that one episode.
Mm-hmm.
It'll come to us, I'm sure. But Monica talks about... Yeah, you're right, Amy. So Monica talks about how this is an opportunity to be independent, and then Joey, to his roots, hits on her like right away. So Joey's showing his true colors pretty early as well. At that time, knock on the door. Who's at the door? Do you remember who's at the door? Paul the wine guy. Paul the wine guy is at the door. So he makes his appearance. Obviously, based on everybody's reaction, like Monica's had a crush on this guy for a while. So she ends up leaving. Ross then ends up asking Rachel what she's up to tonight, and I think that's the first time you see an interaction between. And I know there was like the introduction where he like let the umbrella fly open in the coffee house, but realistically that could happen to anybody in any situation. Like that doesn't make anything certain. But Ross asking Rachel what she was doing tonight, which Rachel like responds, "I was supposed to be going to Aruba, so nothing," which is funny as well. But Ross, I think that's the first time you see that like awkwardness of Ross towards Rachel. That like you can definitely tell he's had a crush on her before.
Yeah. And then it's funny that he brings it up and says, "I don't know if you know this, but I had a really big crush." He's like, everybody knew.
Everybody knew.
To your point there, everybody watching the episode for the very first time clearly knows before he even finishes the sentence that there's something there.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. So, and then the next scene is spliced up between Monica's date with Paul, the three guys building the furniture, and Rachel leaving Barry a message, which is funny to me. Phoebe is not in that splice. I didn't think Phoebe was used a whole lot early. I think she's definitely a character that they maybe didn't think was going to be as successful as she was. So it's funny to see her growth as well.
Part of that, I think, is also like that the first episode is packed. Like there's a lot going on in that first episode. Like they've got to set the scene, and it could have just been too that, like you're saying, that they may not thought she would have been a star character or anything like that, but kind of ran out of time too. Only 21 minutes or 22 minutes there.
Yeah. And she's got quite a background. Of all the background stories, she's got the craziest for sure. And it's funny how it comes into light, and I think that's the next episode where she's just like, a matter of fact, this is everything that's happened to my life that has been terrible. Like, and so I'm here. And Rachel's like, okay, my background's not bad at all. I have nothing tough right now. So Ross is building this new furniture that he lost in divorce with Joey and Chandler, which makes me think about all the furniture Ross ends up losing throughout the series, which is insane. Because you buy a couch and you want it for 20 years. Ross loses furniture in the divorce.
And then Emily loses the stairwell. Loses the couch in the stairwell.
Like, he's bought so many couches in just 10 years. Which is crazy to me. So, I guess in fairness, we never found out if he got... I guess you could go back and look at the furniture if he got it back from Gunther when he bought it, because he's the one that bought it. I guess you could... But I would doubt Gunther gave that back. I would doubt it too. I would say Gunther really held on. If he did give it back, or he
wouldn't have given it back, but he would have sold it back. Maybe he'd make a return on that
one. So then it flashes to Rachel, talking to Barry, and then she's like, and she hangs up and she redials, which we think maybe she got hung up on, and then she's like, "Hey, it's me."
She coming off again.
Yeah, like all like happy-go-lucky, and then back to the depressing message of why she left him at the altar, which is, again, so funny because that's who she is. Like, she's ditzy at that point. She doesn't understand.
But you think about that later is the reason he's not answering is not even necessarily because he doesn't want to talk to her. He's in Aruba.
Correct.
This is 93.
He never went back to
his
apartment.
Cell phones. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely either on the plane or at Aruba, correct? Like, she would have never thought, I'm going to call him. Because even in the next episode, she's like, "You look tan," and he's like, "Well, I went to Aruba." Like, so then it flashes to Monica, and she's getting worked over by Paul, like through and through, and you can tell there's pickup lines there. I mean, I don't know, maybe early, the first couple times you walk through, you're like, maybe Paul's a genuine dude, but the more times you watch it, you're like, man, she had no shot like this.
She had no shot, and I kind of hate that too, because I mean, I've used pickup lines. I know people have used pickup lines, but everybody that I know has used things like that as a joke.
Yeah.
to like break ice or something. Like, I don't know anybody that's actually used a blatant lie like that as a pickup line that never came to light. And it's a bad one.
And it never would have. If she didn't work with that girl, it never would have. She would have been clueless. And then, like, later on in the episode, she's sad about it because she's like, I thought he was nice. And, like, you start to see, like, how driven Monica is to have that, like, family portrait, which it's so hectic and overwhelming for her to get that throughout all 10 seasons. And, like, there's so many obstacles to get it. So it's really neat to see that she wanted that early and that she, like, for 10 seasons, like, strived to make sure that she got that. But then we head back to Ross's apartment, and Ross says something about what if there's only one woman out there, and Joey goes on his, like, women are like ice cream.
Chant.
It's insane. Insane. Like, all these different flavors, and all you got to do is grab a spoon, and then Ross makes another comment, which you know what that is, and then Chandler again says, "Well, stay out of my freezer." Like, everything he says in this first, and I don't know if I've never noticed it until now, because I was actually, like, starting to semi break it down. I'm like, this dude, like, doesn't say anything genuine. Like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
For 2 episodes. I'll see what the third episode holds.
2
episodes. I'm pulling for him. But
it's going to be a couple seasons.
I know. And he's still sarcastic toward, like, all 10 seasons, but
he can have a conversation.
Yes. Like, he can talk to people. So then Ross talks about how even if there was a woman out there for me, how would I ever, like, build up the courage to ask her out, or who would it be? No, that's what he says.
Yeah.
He says,
so who
would that woman be? And then it flashes to Rachel sitting in that, like, cubby area and, like, looking out the window. And that, in the biz, is what we call foreshadowing. Because that was
heavily
very blatant. Even if you miss the awkwardness of the Monica's kitchen, you're like,
exactly. Yeah,
there we go.
If you miss that,
they're talking about. Yeah, you are oblivious to it. So back in Monica's apartment the next morning, Paul's leaving, which Joey and I think Joey, Chandler, and Phoebe are all there. So and then Joey says, like, if that's not a real date, like,
what the hell are you doing on a real date?
Right, exactly. So then they're all getting ready to go to get jobs, and Rachel's like, "Oh, all of you guys have jobs," and decides that she wants to get one. Which, and we'll talk about this as it goes, but when did Rachel go from jobless to getting a job at the coffee house? I don't feel like it was ever, like, defined, or did I just miss it?
I don't think it ever shows anything like an interview, but it shows her in, it's like is it the second or third episode? I don't remember. It's early on, but it shows her, like, walking with an apron and a cup of coffee, and it's like, anybody want a cup of coffee?
Yeah, it's this first episode. But what I'm saying is, she goes from, like,
first episode.
Yeah, she goes from not like, oh, I want to get a job, goes out all day, spends her dad's money on boots, and then, like, a scene later, she's got a job. Nothing was defined in that moment. It was just kind of.
Gunther's working there at the time, right?
No, Gunther doesn't show up until way later.
Really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say that it would, make sense. She just walks up and says, "I'm looking for a job," and then he says, "Yeah, you're hired." So, like, they didn't need any build up because it's Gunther, and he'll give her a job.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at when Gunther's first. Okay, Gunther's first episode was actually the second episode.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about tonight. I didn't realize he was in that. But his first line didn't come until the 33rd episode. So he went the whole first season without saying anything. He was just standing in the background. So, so then, let's see. Coffee house. Wait, Paul leaves in the morning. Blah blah. Coffee house. Hold on. Oh, right before I got confused on my notes. So right before the coffee house is when Monica is working at the restaurant, and she finds out that Paul used a line on her. Which, again, to your point, that's not just a one-time thing with this dude. He's used it multiple times.
Like,
two that we know for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if we're cussing on this, but this guy's an a-hole. Like, he gives us a bad look, man.
Terrible. Can't be Paul the wine guy.
No.
So then it flashes, she's like, here's the news, and then like you can see her like be defeated in the restaurant, and then it flashes to Joey, and he's like, of course it was a lie. No sympathy at all.
Yeah. There's no sugarcoating, there's no delicate handling there. It's just bolsterous. Duh.
And then like he doesn't say anything the whole scene, and then he's like, I can't believe you didn't know it was a line. And then she pushes him off the couch. So then Rachel shows up. She's got the new boots. And that's where she admits that she was going to marry Barry for safety, like for money. And then it flashes to Monica's apartment where they get her to cut all her credit cards.
Yep.
Which I think she in turn did for Jill, aka Reese Witherspoon, way, a few seasons back or up. But then it shows that Reese was a little bit smarter than Rachel because she memorized the credit card numbers. So then Rachel says that she's scared. That's what she says. And that's when we get Phoebe's background story of like...
Yeah, that's when she runs through it.
It's like a 15-second like... This is what happened. Like, I was living on the streets, mom killed herself, dad was in jail, blah, blah, and then Rachel's just kind of sitting there. And then Ross is like, anyway, which I don't like that because, like, that's legit Phoebe's background story. But
yeah, that's her entire life, and he's just, like, brushing it to the side anyway.
Correct. I do think it's, like, Ross said that because it was Rachel and he wanted to, like, try to, like, say something to her. But at the same time, it let Rachel know, like, okay, I'm complaining about having to cut credit cards.
Right.
Like, my life's not that bad. So, and then later that night, Ross admits to Rachel that he had a major crush on her. She said she knew. He said, I thought you just thought I was Monica's older geeky brother. She said, I did. And then he goes through, again, that awkward of, like, maybe... And again, he's going through divorce. She just left a man at the altar, and he's like, do you think it's okay if I ask you out sometime? And both of them are just like, oh, this is a great idea. Like, there's no red flags at all.
No. Nobody's mourning. Nobody's in emotional turmoil. Everybody's in the right state of mind for this. Let's go for it.
Yesterday, I left a man at the altar. Today, I'm telling you. Which, again... To Joey's point, he's like, is there a rule for how long you can hit on somebody? Apparently it's 24 hours.
I was going to say, what's the statute of limitations here? What do we do?
It's 24 hours, because Rachel made that very clear. But yes, you can ask me out.
Yeah, you can.
So then Rachel goes to bed.
What bothers me on that, though, is she says yes. Like, yes, you can ask me out. And he doesn't do it.
Because he's awkward.
I know he's awkward, but, like... Maybe I will. Okay, fine. Maybe you will. But like, when's the first time they actually go on a date? It's
season
like
2.
Season 2, yeah.
Yeah, because
it's not even like it's Paulo episode 2 where it's like I couldn't do it that night.
Right. I wanted to give you time after your wedding.
After I got permission to ask you out, now I'm going to give you time.
Right. You have permission to ask me out, but not right now. So, doesn't Joey say, like, he's, like, at one point he says he's, like, too depressed to eat, and he's like, I'll probably be hungry in, like, a half hour, or something like that. It's like Rachel, like, yeah, you can ask me out, but not right now.
But in, like, an hour.
Right. So then Rachel goes to bed, Ross leaves the apartment, and he's smiling, And Monica asks why he's smiling, and he says,
"Grab a spoon."
I grabbed a spoon. So going back to Joey's grab a spoon because there's plenty of ice cream out there. So, and then that's the end of the episode. So, all in all, the episode, recap it a little bit. I thought it was, again, I thought the acting left some to be desired, especially in places where it was like, it's almost like it wasn't the actor's true form kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't who they truly were.
And you're still getting to know the character that you're playing as well.
Correct.
That. It's not even just like comfort with the chemistry with the other cast. It's you're getting into your own character at that point too. So it's learning, building.
Yeah. So, but I thought again it showed the beginning of Monica wanting to have a family, that family life. It showed Joey was a ladies' man. It showed Ross and Rachel and kind of their beginnings. They briefly hit the Phoebe. Chandler, it definitely set up that he's going to be the comedic relief throughout this series, but, obviously it didn't show a lot outside of that. So, but all in all, I thought it was an episode that was definitely vital to this Friends' success that would make people want to watch it from there on out.
Yeah, you got to compare it too of other shows at the time. I mean, if you look in The Limit, like acting in the 70s is not what acting is today, even at the top, and so that first episode was on par with the level of acting in any other show at the time, and obviously people liked it because it kept going. So it was. The time period based as well.
Right. So, all right, this is the next question. We can do this or we don't have to do this. And, again, this is completely based on fandom, not critically acclaimed people that are being critics. Do we want to give a episode rating every episode and see which episodes we like? Because I've always wondered, like when people are like, "What's your favorite episode?" Like you can probably name them, but could you name like your 5 through 10? I don't think you could.
No.
Like you can name your top 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting.
Okay, I like that.
So I
scale
think
of 5 or scale of 10.
Yeah, I think you got to go scale 10 because there's just unless
points.
You do like points, yeah. So you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Are we doing points though? Like 5.0 or 5.3?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's pretty much on a scale.
So out of 100. Yeah. So we finally got it. I would give this one probably let's go with a 6.
I got mine
67.
written down so you don't think I cheat and like copy you. 67.
Yeah.
I did a 75.
So I gave 67 because one, they jam packed it. They packed it full of a lot of content, gave a lot of backgrounds in a short amount of time. Not into the 70s, a lot because of the acting, a lot because it's still very new. It's really hard to have a good drawing in first episode, especially when it's not a drama. If you think about the first scene in like Dark Knight, it's like, wow, that was an awesome scene, or obviously action. But with a comedy, it's kind of hard to suck people in on that first episode. And I think they did a decent job of that.
Yeah. So again, I think what you're saying is all true. I think this was and again, maybe I'm basing this off the next episode because I'm not real crazy about the next episode too much. But I did 75 because, again, I don't think the acting, what you're saying, is up to par with what they have coming. And, again, I know that they grow as actors, but I'm basing this off of what my favorite episode is. So I kind of have to level it and go, piece by piece on it. So with that, and again, I thought it planted enough seeds that it would that you see this continuing recurring through the series of 10. It's not like they did this episode, and then they had like a 360 on people, and they had to completely change who they were, except for Carol episode 2. They did have to change that. But
they did take that one.
Yeah, so I did. That's why I gave it 75, because I thought it was a good pilot episode for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. Go ahead.
What's your favorite? Do we want to say favorite episodes right now? Get it out there on the line.
On the line, like the internship. On the line. Take a picture and put it on the line. Man, if I had to do my favorite, I think the one where everyone finds out is such a great episode.
That is a good one.
Everything, and again, they're really coming in their own. Like they've got good characters. It's Monica and Chandler trying to
5.
It's like 4. Like
4?
I never realized how early Chandler and Monica got married.
Yeah.
Like they were married for a long time, and I never realized. I thought it was kind of like, oh man, it was like season 8 when they got married, but it's like season 5. Now it's like the end of season 5, but
end of season 5, yeah.
It's crazy how early it was, but
yeah,
the old like they don't know we know they know we know like.
So they were dating a long time, but Rachel's pregnant on Monica's wedding night.
Correct.
That's got to be like 7, right?
I don't know. Let's look it up. What episode did Chandler and Monica get married? Season 7. Okay, you're right. Season 7. So
but they did date for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, they were together. So I was incorrect on that, but I do. It does surprise me how early they started dating, because it was like obviously in London. But yeah, I think the one where everyone finds out is probably, if I'm just like gut reaction, that's probably my favorite. What do you got?
The one where no one's ready. That one, I think it's hysterical. So many things go wrong. So many things are like kind of out in left field. And then it all comes together, and they make it on time. It's just there's a few callback jokes in it, and I just think that one's hilarious.
Did you know in that show or that episode when Joey jumps over and like gets to the chair before Chandler did, he actually did hurt his arm, like in real life. That's why he's in that. That's why he's in that sling the next episode. Remember how they're like, they're like, Joey hurt. How did you hurt your arm? By jumping on the bed, because that's how the scene opens. Yeah. Like you hear him jumping on the bed and falling off, but it's really because he hurt his. He hurt his. I don't know if it was his elbow, his shoulder, or what.
That makes sense because the cushions aren't in there, so when he lands, like his arm goes. That's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is 100% true. So this next episode, I don't think is a real long one. We're at 48 minutes. Do you want to try to skedaddle through it, or do you want to call it for tonight?
Probably gonna call it for tonight. But okay. I think without the introductions and leading in, we can go a little bit quicker next time to get through multiple episodes in the season.
Let's do this. Let's at least, because you watched or at least heard background of episode 2 tonight, correct?
Yep.
So while it's fresh in your mind, let's at least hit the trivia, and then we can roll into it. So you're not totally taken off guard next time. So 3 more trivia. The episode is called The One with the Sonogram. So the first one, I think the first one's easy, because I think this was a trivia question when we did that COVID trivia. But how much did Ross and Monica's dad say that Rachel's parent spent on Barry and Rachel's wedding?
Ooh.
Can I tell you what the answer is?
I'm waiting.
Had to make
You've known everything up to this point.
Is it 50K maybe? That's a guess.
40. So 40. He's sitting at the. It's when Monica makes dinner for all of them. And again, we'll get into all that. But he's like, I'm not saying how much they spent on them, wedding, but $40,000 is a lot.
That's
so
right.
I guess he doesn't say they spent, but he definitely insinuates that's what it was.
Yeah.
So. Okay. What did Chandler say? And this is the episode where we first get, not introduced, but hear of Ugly Naked Guy. So, what did Chandler say Ugly Naked Guy brought home that he saw him with?
It's a Chinese food?
That's what he's eating when Ross meets him for the first... Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The poking.
And when they poke him. Yeah, they poke him. I think that's where I'm getting the Chinese from.
We're putting together a very long poking device. I think that's when Chandler breaks up with Janice, which is a phenomenal secondary character.
Yep, that is, because that's also when when Chandler's throwing darts and he fakes around. We'll get to that one.
The Thigh Master, Ugly Naked Guy has a Thigh Master. So I would not have got that. Now this one's probably the hardest one. So you might go over here. The next time we might just do these 3 again, just so you can redeem yourself.
Might need to, yeah.
So Ross is in the hospital or the doctor's office with Susan and Carol, and asking about how everything works and about important decisions. And Carol says, "For instance, can I get a for instance?" And he says, "Names." And Carol and Susan already have names. What were those names?
Helen and wait, what? Yeah, because he makes a Helen Geller joke.
That's when they're trying to they're going through names. They bring up 2 original names.
Oh.
They both start with M.
The girl
name's kind of easy because he makes a joke about it.
I don't know.
It's a cartoon character, and he says
Montana?
blank, and she says like my grandmother. He's like, still, when you hear blank, you think mouse.
Mickey, yeah.
Minnie Mouse.
Yeah.
And Marlin and Minnie were the 2 names. So,
yeah, I don't think I would have got that one.
But again, this episode
that's not something that I think I would have.
I don't think I would have got it.
I don't think I would have got it.
Didn't.
Yeah.
Well, you were correct in that because you didn't. You just didn't. But I this episode is not one of my favorites. So we'll get through it. But I don't blame you for not knowing the answers because it's not a great episode, so it's not very memorable.
I'll do better next time. I will say, Amazon also does not have the deleted scenes that the disc sets do.
It doesn't. See, I wouldn't know one way or the other.
Because in the first episode, it's like after Chandler's making fun of him for being Pinocchio. What that was a little boy. Yeah. In the DVD, Joey looks back in the apartment and goes, "I'll have you know he's a dead man," or something like that, and then walks out. But in this one, it just walks out in the TV version.
Yeah, I would have never known that. See,
if your trivia goes back out.
Yeah, but they're just so inconvenient. Digital is just so convenient. Oh, next episode? Yeah. Oh, next season? Yeah, you don't have to flip through it. So,
yeah.
So, I thought the breakdown was great. Your trivia, I mean, first was great. Second episode left something to be desired.
I'll work
but
on
there's
it.
only one way to go for episode 3, so you'll be just fine. So the next time we'll hit episode 2, and again, you're right. Without no introductions, we'll be on it. But hey, great breakdown tonight, phenomenal.
You too.
I still think that you're a little bit smarter.
What's the soundbite you got closing us out?
You know it is. All right, friends talking friends. We will see you next time.